Ladies and gentlemen, there was a cover-up in this case, plain and simple. Look the other way. 4 words that sum up the Commonwealth's entire case. Conflicts of interest? Doesn't matter. Just look the other way. Magic hairs, magic glass. Look the other way. Late night calls and Google searches, falsified affidavits, inverted videos, and butt dials galore. Just look the other way. Make this case cut and dry and ensure the homeowner, quote, never sees any because he's a Boston cop. But most importantly, pick your patsy and pin it on the girl. There's no evidence whatsoever that Karen Read's vehicle ever struck John O'Keefe or that Karen Read ever wanted to strike John O'Keefe. The Commonwealth's own medical examiner, Dr. Scortibello, could not conclude that John was hit by a car. His injuries are consistent with a physical altercation, as she testified, but they are not, in her words, not classical injuries from an auto pedestrian accident. That by itself is reasonable doubt. We introduced you to not 1, but 2 thoroughly credentialed medical examiners. And Dr. Sheridan, for his part, he told you that John's injuries are inconsistent with a motor vehicle accident. They're consistent, however, with a physical altercation. That also is reasonable doubt and should end this case. Michael Proctor is the lead investigator in this case, and much as the Commonwealth might try, ask yourself, how did he approach his job? Late at night, sitting there in his office, deviously looking for naked pictures of Karen Read and talking about her like she's a piece of meat. He went further than insulting her, and he dehumanized her. And when he was done betraying that very humanity, he wished for her to commit suicide. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how you frame someone. That's how you dehumanize someone so viciously that you can just pin it on the girl. When you stare the truth down, you'll see that the Commonwealth has not proven its case beyond a reasonable doubt into a moral certainty, not even close. Ladies and gentlemen, Karen Read is innocent.
I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. Those are the words of the defendant. 4 times. You heard testimony from 4 different witnesses who overheard and observed those statements from the defendant on January 29th, 2022. The text messages from Trooper Proctor are unprofessional, they're indefensible, they're inexcusable. However, I submit they had no bearing whatsoever or impact whatsoever on the integrity of the entirety of the investigation that Massachusetts State Police collectively conducted into John O'Keefe's death here. What do you not see in those text messages? You don't see any discussion or any illusion of any conspiracy, of any framing of the defendant, of any planting of any evidence, no evidence whatsoever. Why? Because it didn't happen. There is no conspiracy, there is no cover-up, there is no evidence of any of that beyond speculation, rampant speculation and conjecture on behalf of the defense. There's no evidence of anything in relation to Brian Albert and Brian Higgins. Brian Albert and Brian Higgins spent January 28, 2022 traveling to New York City to go to a funeral for another police officer, for another department, who they didn't even know. Traveled all the way down to New York and then came back before the blizzard, only to come back from that to go out drinking, to come back to Mr. Albert's house, to then murder another police officer who they did know, who worked for the same department as them. And then criminal mastermind genius that Brian Albert is, 28 years on the Boston Police Department, he's then going to just leave Mr. O'Keefe's body on his front lawn? Really? That's the conspiracy? What evidence do you have of that? Mr. O'Keefe never went in the house. You have testimony from Nicole Albert, Brian Albert, Jennifer McCabe, Matthew McCabe, Caitlin Albert, Brian Albert Jr., Sarah Levinson, Julie Nagel, all indicating never went in the house. John O'Keefe's phone never went in the house from the testimony and the data points that you have from Trooper Garino. Why is it that the defendant can see Mr. O'Keefe when they eventually get to Fairview Road and no one else can? It's because she knew exactly where he was. What the constellation of the facts and the evidence ineluctably demonstrate here is that the defendant drove her vehicle in reverse for 24.2 miles per hour for 62.5 feet, struck Mr. O'Keefe, causing those catastrophic head injuries, leaving him incapacitated and freezing to death. From that facts and that evidence, I would submit ineluctably demonstrates her guilt on each of the indictments before you. And I would ask that you find it so.